Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving that 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story you'd like to share or have comments about the podcast? Love to hear from you. Just email us giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can connect to us on Facebook. Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. As we wrap up National Kidney Month, we observe it every March here in the United States. It is dedicated to raising awareness about kidney health, the prevention of kidney disease, and the importance of early detection and treatment. Organizations like the National Kidney Foundation and the CDC use this month to educate people on the risk factors, encourage kidney screening, and promote healthy habits protecting kidney function. In this episode 47, we welcome Emilee, whose kidney journey began at the tender age of 4, living with chronic kidney disease, CKD, her entire life. Emilee has faced countless challenges, yet her unwavering faith and resilience have guided her through every step. With both her mother and grandmother also battling CKD and dialysis, Emilee's story is one of hope and the power of community. Through the hardships and the triumphs, Emilee shares how her journey, which she believes was written by God, has shaped her life and blessed those around her. We'll hear Emilee's inspiring story coming up next. So, Emilee, if you would, tell us just a little bit about yourself to get things started.
Absolutely. So I am from the upstate of South Carolina, born and raised in Possum Kingdom, a small community in southern Greenville County. I am a wife and a mother of 2. I homeschool my children, and I am a kidney recipient. I homeschool my children. I think I've already told you that. And I apologize.
Oh, don't apologize. We're just going to have fun here. That's what we're getting ready to do.
And we, after we had our transplant, started a organ support group in our area. And with the flexibility that I have, I'm able to go speak at events, advocate throughout the community, volunteer in any way we can to help raise awareness.
Awesome. So how did your journey begin? Let's just start from the beginning.
Absolutely. So my transplant journey began actually when I was 4 years old. That was when I was first diagnosed. Yes, sir. I was first diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease. It is hereditary. I do have autosomal dominant. My grandmother had it, was on dialysis for over 15 years. And then my mom was diagnosed when she became pregnant with me. And then I was diagnosed at 4. And then I also have 2 children, 2 boys, and they both, one was diagnosed at 3 years old and the other was diagnosed at 6 months old.
Oh, wow.
So I've always been in the kidney world, I like to say. My grandmother lived with us, and so dialysis has always been a part of my vocabulary. But
so now at 4,
honestly,
were you on dialysis then at 4 years old, or
I was not. No, I actually was pretty healthy. Aside from chronic urinary tract infections, I really didn't have any problems throughout my childhood, throughout my younger years. I may have a ruptured a cyst or two, like maybe in my teens and into my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until I was 32 years old, back in 2016, that I really started having kidney trouble. So when I was 20 years old, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I began treatment for that following a rheumatologist who also worked with my nephrologist, because they really weren't sure of the medications and things like that to be able to provide treatment to give me relief from my RA symptoms, but also not wanting to harm my kidneys. And so the doctors were working well together, and I was able to receive the treatment for the rheumatoid arthritis and still have maintained a great kidney function until 2016. My rheumatoid arthritis got really out of control. My rheumatologist left the country where her visa expired, and she could not come back in to the country for several months. And in that meantime, my kidney function was dropping, and I was not aware of it. She came back into the country, was back in the office seeing patients in October of that year. And I sat in front of her, and she looked at me and she said, "You're in complete renal failure." And I was just stunned. I knew I wasn't feeling well. My rheumatoid arthritis was out of control. And, I was struggling. I was not feeling well, but I had no idea that I was in renal failure. And I had been going in it for several months. So we're actually, because of the polycystic kidney disease and the rheumatoid arthritis, I was having lab work done every month just to check and make sure that my kidney function was good and so forth. And they did, you could go back and look at all the labs and see how it just trickled down from there.
Okay.
So she sent me straight to the hospital, and they prepared me that week that I was there for dialysis, scheduling me to have an access put in. My hemoglobin was also very, very low, so I was receiving blood transfusions. My blood pressure was very high, and so I was receiving trying to, all those medications trying to get it down. And they also did some bone marrow biopsies. They were, I don't know, it was kind of, they were just thinking it was progression of my polycystic kidney disease, but at the same time, nobody really had any answers and wasn't really telling me very much other than, hey, you're in kidney failure and you need dialysis. Well, from my past and my history of my mom going through dialysis and my grandmother being on dialysis and knowing about dialysis all of my life, I had always thought, okay, I want to have a transplant, but I want to have a preemptive transplant. I want to have a transplant before I ever have to go on dialysis.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the toll that it took on my grandmother's life and the toll that it took on my mom's life. My mom actually passed away at the age of 55. She was on the transplant waiting list. We were searching for living donors, and she went in and had a dialysis declot procedure, and she had a massive stroke that took her speech and paralyzed her on her right side. And long story short, she did make the decision eventually to stop dialysis and again passed away at the age of 55. And I just, taking care of both my grandmother and my mom, I just knew that I didn't want to have to place my family in that position. I knew that they would do it, but I have 2 young children. I didn't want to ask that of them if there was something that I could do about it. And that was to advocate for myself and to seek a transplant. So hearing the news that, hey, we're about to start you on dialysis, that kind of really took the rug out from under me.
Yes.
And so in 2016, I spent that first week in the hospital. They let me go home on that Saturday. So I was in there for the whole week. Let me go home on that Saturday after they kind of got my blood pressure under control. They had given me several units of blood to bring my hemoglobin and red blood cell count back up. And they said, okay, we're going to bring you back into the office next week. Well, I got to stay home that Saturday and Sunday. And that next Monday, they called me and they said, you need to come to the office now. And this is my nephrologist that called. He said, we know what's wrong with you. I was like, okay. And went straight to the office and he said, you have microscopic polyangiitis or ANCA-positive vasculitis. And he said, that is the reason that you are so sick right now. And he sent me straight back to the hospital. I began plasmapheresis treatments. I began chemotherapy, high doses of steroids, and just tried to really stop my immune system at the time. So microscopic polyangiitis is an autoimmune disease that attacks the lining of your blood vessels. So that's what created that high blood pressure for me. And that is what kind of hit my kidneys so hard and took that function away. Mm-hmm. So I was on chemo for about 3 months until my body said no more. And then I began immunotherapy treatments. So I did immunotherapy treatments for 3 years after that and was able to get to a point where my microscopic polyangiitis was in remission, as well as my rheumatoid arthritis was in remission. And at that point, I did gain most of my kidney function back. I did not have to do dialysis. I came to about a stage 3 in my kidney function. And I held it there for several years. And then in 2022, 2023, I began to rupture cysts more often. And then they would grow bacteria and I would go septic within a couple of days' time, and would be in the hospital again and again. And I would bleed so bad from my kidneys. And they were like, okay, if your hemoglobin doesn't come up tomorrow, we're, going to do a nephrectomy and start you on dialysis. Again, I was just like, I don't want to do dialysis. I will if I have to. But my prayer, I will say my faith is the most important thing about me. And my prayer to God was just, Lord, if you can make a way for me not to go on dialysis. And so every time he did, the blood flow would stop and the function would come up a bit. But every time I would have one of those infections, it was just like a sucker punch to my kidney, to both of them. And I just continued to lose function over those years until January 9th, it was my birthday, of 2023. I was in the hospital again, another infection, another ruptured cyst, more sepsis, and a new to me nephrologist came in and she said, okay, it's time for transplant. And that was the words that I have been waiting to hear, because I did not want to do dialysis. And so to have a doctor who was saying, okay, I agree with you. I don't want you to have to do dialysis. Let's make movements towards transplant. And it just so happened that in the hospital room with me when the doctor came by was my best friend. We met each other when her dad became the youth pastor at my church. I think I was 14 and she was 12. So we're 2 years apart, but our birthdays are side by side. Her birthday's January the 8th, mine's the 9th. So we just, as soon as I met her, we became friends, very close. Celebrated our birthdays together throughout the years. And as I continued to get older, I met her older brother who was at college at that time. He's about 5 years older than me. But I met him and fell in love. So best friends turned sister-in-laws because we got married. And then, throughout our 20s, had our children around the same time. Our oldest, we were both senior moms this year. We have our two oldest are graduating from high school. So we went through pregnancy and those first, steps of motherhood together. And we have just done everything in life together since we've met. And so she was in the room with me that day and she looked at my daughter and she said, I'm going to be the one giving her the kidney. And the doctor was like, that's great. Yay. We'll get you tested. This is awesome, And she looked back at me and she said, but Emilee, you need to be asking other people. You need to make a list of people that are willing to donate. You need to start asking. And Brooke was like, but I don't understand. Like, I'm giving her my kidney. She was so sure about it and so adamant about it. And the doctor's like, yes, but the chances, they could kind of slim. She's my sister-in-law, not my sister. So no family relations. But our blood types did match. So absolutely, we'll put you down. Once we get Emilee approved and on the list, we'll get started testing on you. But Emilee, you really need to make a list of other people who are willing to. So that kind of began that part of our transplant journey. So that was in January. In March, the very end of March is when I got in for my first transplant evaluations. And Brooke was right by my side. She went to all my appointments with him and she looked those doctors square in the face and she said, I'm going to be her donor. She had this assurance that there left no question to it. She was just absolutely sure. And so I began seeking other donors as well as I was told. And that was the most amazing part is the response of other people, even strangers, who are willing to step up and say, I'll get tested. I'll give you a kidney if you need it. That part just amazes me. The selflessness of other people. The Bible says greater no love than this, than to lay one's life down for a friend. And how true is that for organ donors?
Yes.
To be able to be willing to sacrifice for somebody else.
Now,
be able to live.
Yes, I've had donors that say just in the middle of the night, they woke up and said, someone out there needs a kidney. I'm going to donate. And that just, for some reason, and I know it shouldn't because I've been around this for so long, but it blows my mind that someone would just wake up in the middle of the night and say to themselves, I don't care who gets it. I don't care where it goes. I'm going to donate a kidney. And they do it.
Right.
It's truly amazing how that happens.
It is. It is. And I don't ever want that wonder to fade, It's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And to the organ donors that are out there, I mean, there are no words, I believe, to be able to express the gratitude that we as recipients, we who've been given the chance for new life, could offer. I don't think there's enough words in the dictionary, in the English language, or any other that could truly encompass all of the thankfulness and the gratitude and the wonder that we have.
But now you got me on my edge of my seat. Now this friend that you've had forever, and she said, I am going to be the donor. And she has said this now over and over again. Where does this story go?
I can't wait. So to answer your question, I got tested. I began the process in March. I was listed. Let's see. I found out I was listed in April. I was listed inactive. Of course, you go through the process and they check you head to toe. So at one center that I went and got tested at, or got evaluated at, they did a chest x-ray and they found a spot on my lungs. And so then I went to the next center and they saw that chest x-ray and they're like, well, we're going to do a CT scan. And then once they did the CT scan, they confirmed the spot on my lung, but then they found a mass on my thyroid. It's like you do one test, they find something else. So they put me on the list in April. But I was listed inactive until I got clearance on those things. So as soon as I got on the list, that's when Brooke's testing could begin. And that began in April. And I'll never forget, in May, we were just waiting every day to see if she would get a phone call, an email, a MyChart message, to see what her testing showed, if she was a match, if she would be truly giving me that kidney. And one day in May, she texted me. And I got to tell you this, VJ, first.
You're as bad as Ryan Seacrest. Let me tell you right now.
Brooke has always been late for everything. Like if we have a family dinner, like we would tell her that it started at 5:00. It didn't really start till 6:30. But we had a possibility of her actually showing up by 6:30 if we told her it was about an hour and a half beforehand. She is always like, and if she says I'm on the way, she probably hasn't even left the house yet. So Brooke is always late.
That means I'm putting my shoes on and getting ready to walk out the door. Is what you're telling me.
Exactly. So that day in May, she texted me and she said, girl, you're about to be late for everything. You're getting my kidney. They had approved her and said that she was a perfect match for me. And so we were just so amazed and so grateful. And I started going through all of my testing to rule out all these other issues that they had found and so forth. And we're preparing for the transplant. We're speaking at churches and just trying to share our story with our community, doing all the things to get ready for it. And in September, I finally got everything checked off my list. I've got all my appointments in. I've got clearance all the way around. And they said, okay, guys, we're ready. We're ready to schedule a date. And so they scheduled it for September the 12th, 2023. And about a week before the transplant, Brooke makes a post on Facebook. She doesn't even tell me about this. She posts on Facebook for the whole world to see. And I'm so grateful for it. But remember how I said that we had babies around the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So my son was born prematurely. There's about a 4-month age difference between my son and Brooke's daughter. And my son, since he was born prematurely, had some kind of issues we had to work through. He was on preemie formula. He did not agree with his tummy, but he needed those calories, and he would not feed well, and he would cry a lot. And we had to wake him up and have him fed every 3 hours. I mean, it was a process for a new parent, and exhausting at the same time. So Brooke would come over in the afternoons when she would get off of work, and she's just the itty bitty thing. But she'd have this big old belly, and she would sit in our rocking chair, and she would get him, and we would strip him down to his diaper, and then she would pull her shirt up just to where her tummy was exposed, and she would lay Easton, my son, across her stomach. And she would sing to him. She's got an absolutely beautiful voice and is so talented. And she would just sit there and sing to him so that I could go rest for a while. And a week before transplant, she puts this post out and she shares how she used to do that with my son. And she says that she had never told anybody else, only her, God, and Easton knew about this. But when she would hold him there, she would pray and she would ask God, Lord, when it's Emilee's time, let me be the one. let me be the one to give her a kidney. See, my mom had just started dialysis when my son was born.
Oh, wow.
She had just begun that journey herself. And Brooke had helped me take care of my grandmother. She was there by me when my grandmother passed away from this disease. She was there and helping me when my mom started. And so watching both my mom and my grandmother go through it, she knew even then that she didn't want me to have to go through that as well. And she didn't want, my children to have to experience that and have a parent go through it and have to take care of them the way that I had to with my grandmother and my mother. Not that I would take that back for any second in the world. It was one of my life's greatest privileges to be able to do that and take care of them. But she prayed and she said, God, let me be the one. Let me be the one. And she promised Easton, she said, one day I'm going to save your mama's life. And God answered that prayer.
Wow, that's pretty
17
amazing.
years ago, he answered that prayer. And that's why she was so sure about it. She said, you don't understand how long I've been praying for this and how I've been seeking God and how I made that promise to your son when he was just a few weeks old, laying there on my belly. And it has just been an absolute joy. I can't, it's been just to see how God's been in every single moment of our story and how, even at 14 years old, he placed her in my life so that she could save my life.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful for her. I mean, she is my best friend. I think she knows me better than anybody else in the world. And yet she thought me worthy enough to be able to give an organ to me. And I'm here today because of it.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask everyone, but I don't know if you could. Now, I've had friends that have donated to other friends and relatives that have donated. And I always ask this question, but I think I've already heard the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Did it make you any closer than you were before? But it sounds like you were so close before that it couldn't have made you any closer.
I agree. I mean, that's how we've been since we've met. I mean, we have just been together, all of life's experiences and the joys and the sadness. The day, that the night that my mom took her last breath, Brooke was there with me.
Oh, wow.
And in every bit of that. And so, I don't know if it's brought us closer. I think we were already there. But it definitely does increase
The bond. Maybe that's it.
the
Maybe
bond, the appreciation, to have a friend to love you that much. You have friends that'll say, I take a bullet for you.
Mm-hmm.
But do you love me enough to give an organ to me,
Wow, she's like your Secret Service agent right there, right next to you.
She is. I mean, I know with my mom, like I said, I mean, we were seeking a living donor for her and all of her friends and people that are within our lives, we're like, okay, this is the time, you've always said that one day well, here's that one day. And, there hardly was any people to stand up,
Mm-hmm.
And there's reasons. There are reasons why people cannot be a living donor.
Right.
But there are lots of people who can be. They just have to have that love, that sacrificial gift to be able to say, hey, I've got something that I can give to you and that I want to give to you. I'm willing to give to you.
Yeah, they are some amazing people. That's for sure.
Yes.
In your story, I mean, I have talked to many of folks who have had organ transplants, and this may be one of the toppers, one of the top stories I've heard, in all honesty, because it is just, I don't know, I don't know how to put it in words, but it is truly an amazing story. There's no doubt. I mean, every story is amazing, but this has got just a little special touch that has actually touched me. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. It is. It's God's story that He wrote for us, and we're just very, very thankful we get to play a part in it. It's it's been such a gift, and a lot of people don't see transplant and disease and suffering as a gift, but to see how God's used it and how He's used it in my life to grow my faith, and it's just been the biggest blessing to me. I'm thankful that I have this disease, and I'm thankful for what He's done in and through it.
Now let's go to post, because now let's just get to the surgery now. Now we finally know who your donor is. And that is just, until, that so far has been amazing, but I wouldn't doubt the amazement is going to continue. But now it's surgery day. What's happening?
Surgery day, we walked in together at 4:30 in the morning. She made it to the hospital on time. On time. And they put us in rooms adjacent from each other. And if you're ever in a room with us, we're going to be cracking up. We're just two goofy girls that are still 16 at heart, and, just having a good time wherever we're at, in whatever situation we're in. And so we went in there, and her husband and I have an odd bond. And so he's texting me and from her room, and we're kind of catty corner against the wall, and we're both in both rooms just laughing. There's just laughter coming out. But they did get her up, and they walked her over to me and in my room, and we got to say, our goodbye before surgery, or I'll see you later before surgery. And she just leaned down and she was like, I know Mimi's watching over us. And that was my mom. That's what my kids called my mom is Mimi. She said, I know she's watching over us. And we just had this beautiful moment where it felt like it was the three of us together, and not just me and Brooke, but that Mom was there too. And actually, after the transplant, Brooke had a drawing made, and it's a picture of me and her when she whispered those words to me in the hospital room. And then there's a drawing of my mom kind of watching over us. And she had that portrait made up for me, and it's such a treasured gift because that's what it truly felt like that day.
Mm-hmm.
And so they took her back for surgery. This is a funny story, BJ, because she can't see. I mean, she can, but her vision is very limited without her glasses or contacts. And so she actually forgot to take her contacts out before the surgery, and the nurse didn't remind her. She did tell her, like, hey, I've got my contacts in. Please remind me before we go back that I've got them in, so I'll take them out. Well, kind of everything got away from us, and she forgot to take them out. So she woke up in the recovery room, and she said, oh, I can see. She got that kidney out, and all of a sudden she could see. But she... her surgery went through beautifully. She woke up feeling as well as could be after surgery. It was her first major surgery like that. So she had some of the effects of the anesthesia and was quite, kind of sick from that. But for me, I went back probably 25 minutes after she did. And I just remember laying on the OR table and talking to the nurse anesthetist and the other surgical techs in the room. And I don't know, I just remember laying there, and I was at such perfect peace. I believe they had not given me drugs yet. I knew they haven't given me in my IV before I went back. So I felt like I was in my right mind because I could tell you every detail about that OR room, but the peace that I had there was past all understanding. And I just knew that everything was going to be okay. and I woke up in the recovery room, and my husband was there by my side and the nurse, and they said the surgery literally went picture perfect without a hitch, and said it was the best one they'd seen in a while, and everything was good. Everything was good. So we both got up, the next day, started walking those halls together, hand in hand. We even raced one night who could get to the room the quickest. So I didn't take any pain medication afterwards. I just took Tylenol, so I was able to go home the day that she went home. So we walked in together on Tuesday, and Friday afternoon we both walked out together, hand in hand.
Wow, that's unusual too. So cool.
Yes.
You're a rock star.
I was so thankful that we got to experience all of that together. She did have a little bit more of a difficult recovery. Again, she's so tiny. She had to gain weight for the transplant. So she just had more pain than I did. But yeah, we've done great. Probably about 6 months after our transplant. I'll say about 4 months after a transplant, I signed up to be a peer mentor through the National Kidney Foundation. I myself had a peer mentor through NKF, and so I wanted to be a mentor and pay it forward. And I did all the classes and began that, and that's when I felt laid on my heart to begin a transplant support group in the upstate.
Well,
in our area. Our center in Greenville was newer. We were number 95 there. And so otherwise everybody else had to go to MUSC or Emory or Atrium or Duke, kind of had to go outside of our area. And so we felt led to begin that. And it's called Transplant Warriors and Heroes of the Upstate. And we have been blessed with a wonderful transplant community in our area.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I told you before we did the interview here, I got to live in that area for about a year, and yeah, it's a lovely area, that's for sure.
Yes, it is home, and we. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say now that is it they just do kidneys, or do they do other organs also?
They are working with other organs also. They have done a kidney pancreas, and they could have done more than that, but that's what I know about at this time.
Okay, because I was going to say.
So it is growing.
Because I was going to ask you if you had any other, or I guess I could still join, because I know when I was in Southwest Florida, I live in Central Florida now, but when I lived in Southwest Florida, we had a support group, and it was like but they don't do all organs there either in Southwest Florida. But the support group was all organs. Is yours the same, or is it just pretty much kidneys?
It is. It is all organs. It is open to any transplant recipient, any donor, any the caregivers. It's open to any organ group. Right now, I know we have the kidney pancreas. We have a heart recipient. We have a good bit of kidney, but we have a kidney recipient who's on the list now for a liver. So we are open to any and all. And we're actually having our first pre-transplant meeting. So it's just been post-transplant to be able to sit down and talk with one another, and we discuss our battles and our victories each time we meet, of things that we may be struggling with, like BK virus or CMV or things like that, and then talk about our victories and the things that, hey, my creatinine was the lowest it's been, so we celebrate those things in life together. And so we're having our first pre-transplant where we can share our stories of hope and encourage others with them coming up in March. So we're excited to reach out to that group and have them involved with us.
Now, if there's because we're a podcast, we're, national, we're international, actually. You can listen to us pretty much anywhere in the world. Let's just kind of go through, I know, we talked about your transplant, but since I have you on the line, how did that form, or how did you form that? Because maybe there's other communities that don't have support groups, and they are so very important. And how did you go about doing that, if I could ask?
Absolutely. So I spoke with my transplant team at my center, and I shared with them my desire. Of course, with HIPAA, you got a lot of regulations there, and a lot of red tape. So the question is how could I get the information out there to the transplant recipients and donors and such in our area? And so my transplant group thankfully said, okay, we can put your cards in our lobby, or flyers, whatever you have, we can put those in our lobby. But they had an event, and where I was able to face-to-face go to the transplant recipients that were there and say, hey, we're starting a support group here in the upstate. Would love to have you be a part of it. And so it wasn't, it was me going and asking. It wasn't something that was related with the hospital.
Okay. Well,
if that makes sense.
And I think that's how this one in Southwest Florida got started too. So awesome job there, young lady.
Yeah. Yes. And so then I also, I'm a mentor with Transplant Talk South Carolina. I don't know if you know Gary Simmons, but he is pretty amazing. I have to get you in touch with him. He's a liver recipient, and he started a mentor program here in South Carolina called Transplant Talk SC. And so I kind of picked his brain a little bit, and he helped me along, and we just kind of formed this group and said, okay, hey, we're going to be here for each other. Our I guess the quote that kind of formed for me in my mind, our group, as C.S. Lewis once said, and I'm paraphrasing him, and these are my own words, but he said something along the lines of, friendship is formed when one person says to another, what, you two? I thought I was the only one. And so our group is just a group of Me Tooers who can say, I've been there, and I've walked that road, and it, transplant is a treatment, and it's wonderful, but it's not a cure.
Right. It's
and so it's a journey.
And what I've noticed even before that, and I think I was even told before I was transplanted, each and every journey is totally different, because no two people respond to the same medications. No two people, have the same results. So every journey is a different journey, but when you can combine everybody together, you kind of at least have a little bit of knowledge, and it does help you navigate. That's for sure.
It does. And just somebody to say, hey, you're not walking down this alone. Mm-hmm. Chronic illness can make you feel isolated. Like nobody knows what you're going through. And so being able to come together, even though, like you said, our journeys may be different, but to know that there's somebody else walking this road too.
Well, I'm
not alone in it.
I saw Christine Applegate. She was on one of the late night talk shows, and she has MS.
Yes.
And she was talking that she started this podcast about MS with another patient that had MS, and said, we wanted to spread the word. We want to let people know what our world is like. And I said, man, what am I doing sitting here doing nothing? I've got like all these years of radio experience. I already do another podcast. This is what I need to be doing. So I went, to the folks that put the podcast together, the podcast playground, and said, hey, I got an idea. Would you guys be interested in letting me, put this on the network? And they said, definitely. So yeah, I grabbed onto that, and I've gotten calls, and I've talked to people from all over the country. And I think just this little podcast is putting a lot of us together also. And it's an amazing thing.
I love it. I love what you do. And, one of my goals to work towards for our transplant community, even nationwide or worldwide, is to be able to have a directory of resources that are available to us, to be able to let the pre-transplant patients know, hey, you can listen to this podcast and listen to these stories of hope and encouragement, and, be inspired. And look at transplants as something to hope for.
Well, you're a great ambassador for the cause, I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you, as are you.
But yeah, it is truly amazing. And, you know, people don't understand and talk about it enough. And well, of course, I had the heart and the kidney. And what's really weird, and maybe you get this too with your kidney, I'll meet someone and I'll tell them, oh, I had a heart transplant. I'm about 22. They go, you had a heart transplant? Wow, you look amazing. It's like, oh, you should have saw me. But I don't know. It's so funny because people don't know what to expect. And when they meet someone that's never been through it or never known anyone that's been through it, they're like amazed and thrown back and like, whoa, are you sure? And it's a good feeling, you know. It's a good feeling and a bad feeling in the same way.
Yes. Yeah. People, when I do tell people, they're kind of like, some are, what? That's amazing. And, you know, they want to hear our story, and I love every opportunity that we get to share it. And some people are just like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. And I think it's different with kidney too. As far as from kidney from heart, you know, like I had a kidney transplant. Oh, that's awesome. And then I had a heart transplant. Whoa.
well, I know one of the most amazing stories that I heard through this, and hopefully this is what it's telling people out there that haven't been exposed. Talked to a gentleman who had a transplant. I won't say his name or anything else, but his wife passed about 3 or 4 years before he had his transplant. And of course, you know, they come into the room and they say, you know, they're brain dead. Would you like to donate the organs? And he said, that's the last thing he wanted to hear. And the last thing and he said, no, I don't. But now he needed a transplant himself. He received a life-saving transplant. And he said, if I had that day to do all over again, what happened that day, my answer would have been 100%. Anything you need, anything you want, take. And if people can take that out of any of these programs, I've done my job.
That's right. That is right. We have such a great need within the transplant community. And there's people in the world who are willing to be living donors. We also need people in the world who are willing to be registered organ donors. And I think education is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to educate them and to take away some of the misconceptions that are out there about organ donation, even with living donors as well. And we need more advocacy. I love again what you do. You know, you don't see a lot about organ donation when you turn on the news or when you're watching, you know, the Today Show or some of the other big network shows that you see out there. And I'm like, wow, this is something you can do for somebody else, and you hold that power.
Yeah.
To be able to do it, and just let them know that the opportunity's out there for them to save someone's life. I think we all want to be heroes, right?
Oh yeah, that's a nice thing to be, as a hero.
That's right.
Well,
I'm sure thankful for mine.
Well, before I let you go, is there anything that we might have missed that you really wanted to get out there here on the podcast today before we let you go, or did we? It seemed like we covered a lot of ground, which is cool.
We did. I just any pre-transplant patients. I just want to encourage them. Don't lose hope. Don't get discouraged. It's easy to get in that place and just say, hey, I don't know if I'm strong enough to go through this, or I don't know if I can. It's worth it. It's worth it. And just keep fighting. just keep fighting.
Thank you so much, Emilee, for sharing your story. It is so much appreciated to all. Be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode of Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. If you have a transplant story, please email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook. Also, don't forget to like and share this episode, number 47. And we would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, another podcast you might enjoy is myself with my old morning radio partner, Bill Stevens. That's right, BJ and Bill, the podcast. That is released every Wednesday here on the Podcast Playground Network, the home of some great podcasters. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark, like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. "15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yes today lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rocking, still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.